In this video, I will teach you introductory Portuguese verb conjugation so that you can get started speaking quickly. Let's get started. This video will be divided into 4 parts, so feel free to skip to a part that you feel like you need to skip to. The first part is on verb conjugation and making sure that you understand it like you need to. The second part will be the absolute bare minimum you need to know to begin speaking. You can skip the first part of this video if that is your desire. However, learning this is just so wrong that I included a third part of the video for those who want to make a little bit more effort to drastically improve how native you sound. Finally, I put some practice questions in at the end if you want to try out what you have learned. Without further ado, let's dive into the content of this video. First off, from this point forward, I want you to consider everything that I say through the lens of a beginner. So if I say there's only one verb for the verb to be in Portuguese, that is not to be taken literally. It is meant to be taken that there is only one verb for the verb to be in Portuguese for a beginner. Just keep this in mind as the video continues, because I know that a lot of this information may not be correct to an advanced speaker, but to a beginner, if I elaborate on every single point, it will be very overwhelming very quickly. When conjugating verbs in Portuguese, there are 4 things that you need to consider. The first is the ending, the second, irregularities, the third, verb tense, and fourth, the amount of people and the relationship with the people who are performing the action. Verb tense is very simple. Things can either happen in the past, the present, or the future. Fortunately, you only need to remember the past and the present tense because there is a way to bypass the future tense, and it's actually very similar to English. In English, we don't have a future tense. We say, I will walk, I will run, I will juggle. You can use this exact same structure in Portuguese, but replace the word will with the verb to go. It's as simple as that. Conjugated, of course. Also, I forgot to mention for future tense, whenever you switch the verb from will to go, the verb following that is just kept in its original form with the AR, ER, or IR ending. The amount of people who are performing the action and your relationship to them is a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to show you a flow diagram to help simplify things a little bit. And feel free to pause the video here to fully understand the information that this flow chart communicates. Thankfully, we don't need to memorize the conjugations for all 6 personal pronouns. That would be awful. We can simplify it to just 3. Now is a good time to say that this trick only works for Brazilian Portuguese, so if you are learning European Portuguese, this will be incorrect, although you will still be understood. Você is commonly used in Brazil as a pronoun for you, but is conjugated like you would for ela or ele. Tu is also used like this, but it is much less common. You can also put a gente here instead of nós, and it is perfectly correct like this. Finally, we can replace vós with vocês, and conjugate it like you would for eles or elas, because nobody uses vós anymore. I will go over the 3 different verb endings at the beginning of the third part and irregularities at the end. We are now on to the second part of this video, and like I said earlier, this is the bare minimum you need to know. It will sound terrible, but you will get by and natives will be able to understand you. You only need to remember 3 things. If it is past tense, you replace ad, or ir with you. If it is present tense, you replace the ar, or ir with u. If it is a gerund, which is a verb that ends in ing, you replace the r with ndo. That is the absolute minimum you need to know. With that said, I highly recommend you stick around for a little bit longer to understand a little more about how this works so that you can, not sound like a complete idiot. The point of this is you can sound so much better with only putting forth this much more effort. Okay, so the first thing to know here is that there are 3 different types of verb endings. It can either be an AR, ER, or IR ending. And as you can see, each one of these 3 verb tenses are conjugated differently. Why didn't they just have a consistent verb ending? I have no idea, but that's just the way they decided to do it. Anyways, this table is super easy to use. All you do is you look for the ending of the verb that you're using, which would be one of these 3, and then you look to see who is performing the action, which would be any of these. And I also made it really easy to follow. So, for example, if you wanted to say, I walk, well, walk is andar. Andar ends in AR, so I go to AR. So it must be one of these 5. And then I say, well, who is walking? I am walking. So I walk would be eu andar. Eu is right here. I even included it in parentheses, which is first person singular, and since it's in the present, I would end it with o. So eu andar becomes eu ando. Oh, and also, by the way, PR means present, PA means past, S means singular, and P means plural. And you can do this method with every single verb that ends in one of these three, for the most part. However, there are irregularities, which you can see outlined right here. So let's take a look at an example of how to use this chart for irregularities, which I've also made extremely simple. Let's take the example phrase, he read. Okay, so we go over here and we say he. Well, he is third person. He is also singular. And conveniently enough, in the parentheses, I included Ellie, which is the translation for he. So you know it must be here. Now we need to ask ourselves, is it present tense or past tense? He read is past tense, so it would be the fourth one down. Now we walk on over to here to ler, and we see ler, and go to the fourth one down, which is leu. So we can put leu into our sentence to arrive at Ellie leu. He read. Now keep in mind, notice when I did this, I didn't put leu at the end of ler, so otherwise that would have been like leu. I just replaced the word entirely. So for any single one of these irregular verbs, just replace the word entirely. Do not add it to where the er, well, I guess for this one you can, but for the most part you can't. And lastly, we have gerunds, which are ing verbs in English. So an example of this would be like running, walking, playing, writing, eating, what have you. The point is they all end in ing. So an example sentence could be, I am running, right? Correr is the verb to run in Portuguese. So I would look for the er, go all the way down, and I see that it ends in endo. So I would say, eu estou correndo. And I know it's estou, I almost said porque, because I am is to be. So I look at to be, and it is first person singular because eu, I am the one doing the action, and it's present tense. This is something that's currently happening. So I go on over to our to be, and it is estou. And again, with the irregular verbs, you just replace it entirely. Do not say te tendo when you wanna say I'm having something. Just say tendo. Also, before I cut back to my other scene, I want to do an example with one of these, a third person plural. So if I wanted to say like they are doing something, right? Go to third person because I'm not involved. Plural because there's more than one person, and you can see Elise is on there, so we're good. And we don't even worry about past tense. I've never used past tense for this conjugation. So anyways, present tense, they are doing something. So we have to conjugate twice, once for to be and then once for to do. So I look on over to the verb to be, and it is são. I am doing something. Doing is a gerund, so you would go to fazer, go down to the gerund, and it would be fazendo. Now we have our two conjugated verbs, and the sentence is they are doing something, so I would say eles são fazendo alguma coisa. They are doing something. And that's it for the table. I'll actually duck so you can look at the table in its entirety. It's pretty legit. I like it a lot. Okay, I'll see you in the other room. So congratulations, you figured out how to conjugate Portuguese verbs at a beginner's level. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions at all, just leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to help. Also, I want to note that this video was verified by a Brazilian who is fluent in both English and Portuguese. So, I mean, I don't know why I mentioned this till the end, but yeah, here's some practice problems to help you practice what you've just learned. And I have nothing else to say. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I look forward to the next video. Much love. Ciao, ciao. Okay, so here are the practice problems. I suggest you pause here because I'm going to skip to the answers in 3, 2, 1. Sick transition. Here are some practice problems to help you practice your problems.